Hello cats and kitties, and welcome to another true crime video. I am Terry, your friendly neighborhood headbanger, and I just want to say that I'm sorry that it took a while to get this out. If you watched my previous video about what I got for Christmas, you'll know that I got COVID on Christmas Day. Yay! And so I have felt kind of bleh for the past few weeks. The fatigue tended to hang on, and I still have a cough, so I wasn't really feeling researching a true crime video or doing anything like that. But I feel better now, so here we go. Also, I need to let you know that my black cat Casey has ensconced himself over here next to me, and I'm really hoping he doesn't feel like he needs to help by, crawling on top of my notes or putting himself in the camera, but you may see him before it's all said and done with. Okay, this story, it's not really a story, it's true, is going to be about the Lillelid murders in Greene County, Tennessee. Now, Greene County is about 45 minutes away from me. You're like, Terry, what is all this true crime that takes place near you? I don't know. I mean, it doesn't take place like right where I live, but it does seem to take place near where I live or have lived, doesn't it? Greene County is a county in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, that borders North Carolina. It's a rural county. It has about 70,000 residents. That's for the entire county. It has one largish city in it, Greenville, and it has a couple of other little towns in it, Baileyton and Tusculum are a couple of those. And we are going to be focusing on Baileyton because this is going to take place, the beginning of the story is going to take place near Baileyton. So, let me put on my sexy old lady glasses. Bam. And let me refer to my notes and we'll get this thing started. Okay? On April the 6th, 1997, Vidar Lillelid, 34, and originally from Bergen, Norway, his wife Delphina, who was 28, their daughter Tabitha, who was 6, and their son Peter, who was 2, were kidnapped at a rest stop near Baileyton off of Interstate 81. The Lillelids had been driving home from a religious conference along Interstate 81, decided to stop. Apparently the kids were getting a little cranky and they needed to stop. So they stop, and while they are there at the rest stop, Vidar starts talking to two teenage girls. They happen to be Natasha Cornett, age 18, and Karen Howell, age 17. And he is talking to them about his religious affiliation, the Jehovah's Witnesses. And Jehovah's Witnesses do like to witness about their faith, and they're very open about that. And so that's what Vidar was doing. And he even tried to give the girls a pamphlet when all of a sudden 2 guys showed up that were with the girls. And the guys were Joseph Reisner, who was age 20, and Jason Bryant, who was age 14. Reisner actually flashed a gun at Vidar and said that he was going to have to, and I quote, have to take you with us for your van. So, looks like we're having a kidnapping. So let's talk a little bit about who the kidnappers were. They ranged in age from 14, Bryant, who was the youngest, to 20, which was Reisner, he was the oldest. The other members of the group, and that's what I'm going to call them from now on, is the group, rather than having to say all of their names every time. The other members of the group were Natasha Cornett and Karen Howell, as we said, the 2 girls he was speaking to, Dean Mullins, Crystal Sturgill, and then of course we had Reisner and Bryant. All of them were from Pikeville, Kentucky. Pikeville, Kentucky is a rural area on the eastern border of Kentucky, and it is, like I said, very rural. There aren't a lot of economic prospects there, and basically these guys just wanted out of Pikeville. All of them knew each other because they had all attended Betsy Lane High School together at some point, with the exception of Bryant. Bryant was only 14 and he was in middle school. But all of them knew each other in some way, shape, or form. All of them came from troubled backgrounds. Some of them had histories of substance abuse like LSD, marijuana. So they all were kind of lost and looking for something, and they thought that they might find it if they left Pikeville. And the idea was that they were going to have a fresh start in New Orleans, or New Orleans, depending on how you pronounce it. I say New Orleans. Once they began their journey in Reisner's car, though, they came to a couple of realizations. The first one was that that car was very small for 6 people. The second one was they did not think the car was going to actually be able to make it to New Orleans. They thought that it wasn't going to hold up. So they thought, okay, we are going to have to find another way to get to New Orleans. Now, it wasn't like they were completely unprepared for this trip. They had stolen money from their families, and they actually had a 9mm pistol with them and a .25 caliber pistol with them. So they had planned that much in advance that they would need money, and they took the pistols with them. Now, they made a couple of decisions here that they're going to regret. The first one is that they decided to steal a car. Now, they first decided to steal a car from either a parking lot or a car lot. Now, I'm not advocating stealing cars, but if you're going to do it, it's probably better to do it without taking hostages or without having to take it from somebody, who's actually there. And that leads to their second decision, which is when they were at the rest stop, they saw the Lillelids, they saw the van, and their second bad decision happens, which is they're going to take the van. All right, so kidnapping is going to turn to murder. The Reisner made the family go back to the van, and Vidar tried very, very hard to get him to just say, okay, I'll give you the keys, I'll give you the wallet, I'll give you the van. Tried to tell Reisner, you can have all those things, you guys can have it, just leave the family here. And that did not go over, unfortunately. Reisner forced Vidar back into the van, and he forced him into the driver's seat, and he held a gun on him and told Vidar to drive. In the back of the van, we had Bryant, Hal, and Cornette. They were in the back of the van with Delphina, Tabitha, and Peter. In Reisner's car, behind the van, we had Mullen and Sturgill. Vidar was forced at gunpoint to drive to a place called Payne Hollow Road off of Interstate 81 near Greenville. And then he was told to turn down a small gravel road. And once the van was at a place that was secluded, where no one was around, they told the family to get out and stand by a ditch. Now, at this point, the group's stories begin to splinter when they start telling about what happened. Most of the group pointed the finger at Bryant as the shooter. Said he was the one. He started shooting while they were still talking about letting the Lillelid family go. And he just started shooting, and then he said they're not effing dead and started shooting at them again. This is what the other members of the group said. Obviously, Bryant, has a little bit of a different take on it. Bryant did actually admit to shooting one of the members of the family, but that was not allowed into court because he had not been read his Miranda rights yet. So there's a pro tip for you. Always read Miranda rights. So the problem with this is that the problem with the one shooter theory is that there were 2 calibers or 2 types of bullets found at the scene. There were 9mm and .25 caliber, and that suggests that there was maybe more than one shooter, at least 2 shooters, maybe more. So at this point, the car that is driven by Mullins gets stuck in the mud, and they decide they're just going to abandon it. They took all of their stuff out of the car, out of Reisner's car, and they stripped the license plates off of it, and they put everything into the Lillelid's van. And for some reason, they left the car lights on Reisner's car. Not really sure what that was about, but they left the headlights on. So they get in the van, and some sources that I saw said that they actually ran over Delphina when they were driving away. But they get in the van, they leave the Lillelids for dead, and off they go to New Orleans. So, unbeknownst to the group, though, in a house nearby, some people had heard the shots, and they heard what they said sounded like kids on a playground. So they called 911, and of course, police were sent to investigate. And the first thing they find is Reisner's car, with the headlights still on. It doesn't take them very long from finding his car to finding the Lillelid family. Unfortunately, Vidar and Delphina were dead at the scene, but Tabitha and Peter were alive, and they were sent via med flight to the University of Tennessee Hospital. Tabitha had to be placed on life support, and eventually she would be taken off of life support with permission from her uncle, and she would die, and her organs would be donated. So the only silver lining there is that some other children were able to receive her organs, and she probably saved some lives that way. Peter survived, but he lost an eye, and he would need extensive rehabilitation for quite some time. Now, the police were able to trace the abandoned car back to Reisner, and they found witnesses that had seen the group talking to the Lillelids at the rest stop and then getting in the van with them. So now the hunt for the van is on. They need to find the van. So what is happening to the group while they're on the run? Well, the group had made it to Georgia, and they were going to stop at a Waffle House and eat, but there were cops at the Waffle House, and that kind of scared them. So they decided to keep going. And as they decided, while they were still going, they decided to abandon the idea of New Orleans. They just thought, no, we're not going to do New Orleans. We're going to leave the country. So they decided they were going to go to Mexico. And in Arizona, they attempted to cross into Mexico, but they were stopped at the border because they didn't have the proper identification documents. They weren't prepared to cross from one country into another, so they got turned away. Somehow they found another way in. They got in, but they were stopped by police, and they claimed that they were lost. Now, one source that I read said that at some point Bryant, the 14-year-old, the one that they all said did the shooting, Bryant got shot in the hand and the leg. Doesn't tell who shot him, doesn't tell how he got shot. It just said he got shot in the hand and the leg. I could not find any more information about that. I'm mentioning it because a source said it, but other sources that I read didn't really have a lot to say about that. They just said that the Mexican police stopped them. They claimed to be lost, and the police got them out of the van and searched it. When they searched the van, they found a knife. They found a photo album of the Lillelid family, and they found some trophies that they had taken from the Lillelid family after the murders. So they automatically turned them over to the American Border Patrol agents, who also searched them and found pretty much the same thing. The only difference is the American Border Patrol knew what to look for. They knew via an all points bulletin that this van was being looked for, so they arrested them and took them to jail in Arizona. This was a whopping 2 days after the murders. So they only made it on the run for 2 days. And I know that I was thinking about this, and I thought, man, they made it to Arizona from East Tennessee in 2 days, which just made me think somebody was driving all the time. All right, the trial. Now, according to an autopsy that was conducted by Dr. Cleland Black, a forensic pathologist, Vidar was shot 6 times by both a 9mm pistol and a .25 caliber pistol. Delphina was shot 8 times, also with a 9mm and a 25 caliber. Tabitha was shot once in the head with a small caliber weapon. Now, I don't know exactly why he didn't say 25 caliber at that point, but it just says small caliber weapon in the sources that I saw. So she was shot in the head with a small caliber weapon. Peter was shot twice, once in the chest and behind the right ear. And when he was shot behind the right ear, the bullet came out of his right eye, which is why he wound up losing that eye. At trial, a lot of references were made to the occult and to Satanism and trying to tie that into the defendants, but no specific ties were ever really made to the defendants. Nonetheless, DA District Attorney Berkeley Bell really sort of honed in on this evil thing and really wanted to portray them as evil. He actually said in court that the bodies were arranged in the shape of a cross. And I remember hearing that because, as you can imagine, this was a big deal in this area, and the case got quite a bit of attention in my area. And I remember being told that the bodies were arranged in the shape of a cross. However, Sheriff David Davenport, who responded to the call, said that was not true. He said it basically looked like the kids were just trying to get out of there as quickly as possible, and there was some sources that say that Delphina's body was ran over. They don't think intentionally, they think because just trying to get out of there, they ran over her. So another thing that D.A. Bell said was that he said the group was inspired by the movie Natural Born Killers and that they wanted to go on a killing spree. The evidence doesn't really bear this out because they only did the one incident of killing to take the van, and then they did not kill any more between there in Mexico, and they didn't kill anybody in Mexico. So that sort of maybe not necessarily true. It seemed like that Bell really wanted to portray them as evil, and obviously what they did was evil, but in a supernatural kind of way, in a way that really, honestly, they couldn't make any definite ties to. In the end, D.A. Bell could only prove one shooter, and that was Bryant. But he felt like there were other shooters, and he felt like everybody needed to take responsibility for it. So he offered a plea bargain. And in this plea bargain, D.A. Bell offered to take the death penalty off the table because it was on the table. They were considering the death penalty. He said, "I'll take that off the table if all of you will plead guilty to felony murder and kidnapping and attempted murder." And he gave them a short time to decide this. Now, all of my sources said a short time. None of my sources said how much time. So I don't know if this was 24 hours. I don't know if this was 48 hours. I don't know if it was a week. I don't know how long they were given. But they all said a short time. And they all wound up signing the plea bargain that they would go ahead and admit to felony murder if the death penalty would be taken off the table. Now, Karen Howell, one of the group, later said that she felt pressured to sign, and she felt like if she didn't sign, everybody was going to die. So there was some pressure, I think, probably placed on them, but in the end, they all decided to sign. So in March 1998, all 6 defendants were convicted of felony murder, kidnapping, and attempted murder. They were given each defendant was given 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole, and 25 years for the attempted murder of Peter. And D.A. Bell would later go on to say, and this kind of gives you an idea of he really does think that this has a supernatural bent to it. He said, "It was the highlight of my career as a prosecutor. The whole thing was driven by evil, almost a supernatural type evil. That sense of evil just permeated the whole thing from start to finish. It infused the defendants and it empowered them. That's what I believed then, and my opinion has not changed." Now, one of the appeals that was brought forth from the group was actually that all this talk of occultism and Satanism and that sort of thing was prejudicial to the jury, and that it swayed the jury, and so basically they had to take the plea bargain because they didn't think the jury was going to believe that they weren't evil. That appeal was denied, as were several other appeals that were put forth by the group. So they all had life sentences and 25 years for Peter's attempted murder. After Peter Lillelid's condition was stabilized in late 1997, a custody battle began between Peter's maternal grandmother, Delphina's mother, and his paternal aunt, which is Vidar's sister. His aunt, Randy Heyer, and I'm guessing on the pronunciation there, lived in Sweden. And she promised to raise Peter in the Jehovah's Witness faith, which was important. Their faith was very important to them, the Lillelids. And the judge actually awarded custody to her. So Peter went to go live in Sweden. He was raised near Stockholm, and he lived with his aunt's family. In 2017, Peter earned a degree in internet technology, and in 2020, he moved to the U.S. to begin a career in IT. And he is now married and lives in Connecticut. So he is the bright spot in this story. He got to grow up with a loving family. He got to further his education. He got to come back to the United States. He found love. He got married. So he is the bright spot in this. The dark spot, other than obviously the murder of the Lillelid family, which is of course the darkest spot about this, but another dark spot is just horrible, how horrible the decision making was for the group, how just young and stupid they were, and how they could have, and like I said, I'm not advocating that you steal a car, but how they could have taken a car or taken a van in so many different ways than the way that they did. And I'm not so sure it was evil as it was just out and out stupidity, just young and stupid, thinking we can do this, this is going to be okay, we've got this covered, we'll go to Mexico, it'll all work out. No, it didn't work out. They weren't good at covering their tracks. Leaving the headlights on in the car, that was just weird in and of itself. So this, like I said, this story actually made big headlines where I am from because it didn't happen that far away. And one of the things that it made people talk about in this area is stopping at a rest stop, at night, because the police found the bodies at about 8:22 at night, which would have meant that probably within the last couple of hours everything would have happened. So say from 6 to 8, 6:30 to 8, something like that. So yes, this happened later in the evening, and it made everybody in this area talk about stopping at a rest stop in the evening. Now, I have never stopped at rest stops in the evening by myself. If I'm by myself, I always stop at a truck stop because they are well lit and they're busy, and also you can usually find something to eat there if you want. But like I said, it gave everybody sort of the creeps about stopping at a rest stop around here. And of course that rest stop became infamous around here. And, a lot of people avoided it. Of course, you probably had your true crime aficionados who went there just to say, I was at the rest stop. I would not do that. I love to do true crime for you guys, but I don't necessarily want to go hang out where it happened. All right, guys, this is an overview of this story. This story could have been 3 hours long if I had put everything in that I'd found. I could have spent an hour just telling you about the backgrounds of the members of the group, because there's a lot going on there with their home lives and just substance abuse problems and that sort of thing. But instead, I kind of gave you an overarching view. If you're interested in learning more about it, obviously you can look it up. Greenville, Tennessee Greene County, Tennessee is what you'd want to look up, and Lillelid, which is spelled Lillelid. No, I'm sorry, Lillelid. My bad. I've never been good at spelling out loud. All right, guys, I hope that you found this interesting. Again, it's just tragic. It's just a tragic, stupid thing that these kids did. And a family was destroyed because of it. and Peter will not get to know his parents and his sister, and that is a terrible thing. But like I said, the one good thing that we can say is that Peter lived, and he's now living his life, and he's married. And another uh, positive thing, not positive that she died, but Tabitha's organs went to a lot of different kids that needed it, so that was good. um, so guys, there it is. There's the story. And I don't know what much else to say about it, except that, like I said, it was just a stupid tragedy that did not need to happen. I hope that you guys are well. I hope that you're safe. Don't go to rest stops after dark. I hope that your new year was good and that your Christmas was good. Some of you I haven't talked to since before Christmas, because if you didn't see my video at Christmas, I haven't talked to you since then. So I hope that you had a good holiday, and I hope that you had a good new year, or having a good new year. I turned, well, my birthday, I'm going to tell you what I turned. My birthday was a few days ago. And so my next video will probably be ASMR, what I got for my birthday. But yeah, I'm not telling you my age. A true lady never tells. All right, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next video.